Hello everyone, I'm Connor, and today we're going to delve into another chilling case. In the mid-2000s, this high-profile crime sent shockwaves across America and dominated media headlines. The gruesome nature of the crime and the lengthy investigation that followed captivated the nation. It took several years to apprehend the perpetrator, largely due to the absence of a clear motive and scattered evidence. The sheer disbelief that this particular individual could commit such a crime added to the complexity of the case. It was a painstaking 6-year journey for investigators to piece together the evidence, and the lead investigator admitted in court that he had never seen anything like it in his entire career. This tragic tale includes elements of a love triangle, double betrayal, and a foreboding sign that initially went unnoticed. Meet Jason Young. His background is relatively obscure. Jason was born in 1974 in Brevard, North Carolina, and raised in a typical family. After completing high school, he attended a prestigious state university in Raleigh, the capital of his home state. Post-graduation, he embarked on a career as a salesman in a major retail chain, setting the stage for the events that would later unfold. At work, Jason Young was known as a dependable and promising employee, someone his colleagues could count on. However, his friends had a different view of him, describing him as capricious and inconsistent, especially in his relationships. Jason had an inclination for frequently changing partners, earning him a reputation as a womanizer, a label he seemed to wear with a hint of pride. Now we meet Michelle Marie Young, her maiden name Fisher, who was born in New York in February 1977. Raised alongside her younger sister Meredith. Michelle grew up in a close-knit family. Her mother Linda devoted much time to her daughters, nurturing their talents and supporting their interests. From a young age, Michelle was drawn to law and economics, aspiring to build a career in these fields. After graduating from high school, she applied to several universities and was accepted in North Carolina's capital. Michelle excelled in her studies at the Faculty of Economics and Law, eventually earning a master's degree. Her hard work paid off, landing her a prestigious position at one of the leading accounting firms in the state. As a young professional, Michelle was self-sufficient and ambitious with a bright future ahead. On her 24th birthday, Michelle decided to celebrate at a popular local venue with friends and colleagues. The celebration took an unexpected turn when a stranger accidentally knocked a cocktail out of her hand. This stranger was Jason Young. He immediately apologized and offered to buy her another drink as a gesture of goodwill. Intrigued by Michelle, Jason joined her table, engaging her in conversation with his humor and charm. The evening concluded with him asking her out on a date. Michelle, equally smitten by this chance encounter, accepted his invitation, believing it to be a fortuitous birthday gift from fate. The pair discovered they had much in common. Both were alumni of the same university, albeit Jason had graduated 3 years earlier. They supported the same hockey team and enjoyed the same music. A romantic relationship blossomed quickly between them, but they were not yet considering living together or marrying each other. At the beginning of his relationship with Michelle, Jason was still residing at his parents' home in Brevard and would visit Michelle in Raleigh on weekends or during business trips to the state capital. During one of these visits, Michelle surprised Jason with the news of her pregnancy. This revelation was unexpected and jolting for both, as they were deeply focused on their careers and had no immediate plans for starting a family. Jason initially expressed his unpreparedness for fatherhood. However, after some contemplation, Michelle decided against abortion and chose to keep the baby. This decision prompted Jason to reassess the situation, and about a month later, he relocated to Raleigh to be closer to Michelle during her pregnancy. A few months passed, and the couple decided to get married. Interestingly, their decision wasn't driven by love or the pregnancy, but by a practical concern: Michelle's lack of health insurance. Marriage offered a financial reprieve from the potentially hefty medical expenses of childbirth. In the spring of 2004, their daughter Cassidy Elizabeth was born. Michelle fully embraced her roles as a new mother and homemaker, with support from her mother and sister. It's noteworthy that Michelle's family was somewhat reserved towards Jason, maintaining a cautious distance to avoid conflict. Soon after, the family moved into a spacious house in a serene neighborhood. Linda, Michelle's mother, who often visited to help, was the first to sense a strained atmosphere in the household. Jason's temperament was volatile, and he was prone to emotional outbursts. Michelle, however, consistently tried to diffuse these situations, maintaining an appearance of a content wife and mother in public. Only to Linda did she confide the true dynamics of her marriage. When Cassidy was barely 2, Michelle became pregnant again. She cautiously shared the news with Jason, who reacted with unexpected calmness and seemed pleased. The family soon embarked on a trip to Brevard to share the joyous news with Jason's parents. They planned a brief weekend visit. The first day was spent celebrating the news with relatives, and the following day, the couple went out to a restaurant to commemorate the occasion, leaving Cassidy with her grandparents. Tragically, on the way back, Jason lost control of the car, resulting in an accident. The vehicle veered off the road and plunged into a ravine. Although Jason and Michelle escaped with minor injuries, the stress of the incident caused Michelle to suffer a miscarriage. This loss deeply affected Michelle, yet Jason's reaction was unnervingly composed. The combination of the accident, the miscarriage, and Jason's peculiar indifference cast a suspicious shadow over the events. Linda Fisher later reflected on the accident, considering it a foreboding sign that was unfortunately overlooked at the time. Jason and Michelle had a mutual friend, Michelle Money, whom they both knew from their university days. They hadn't been in touch for a while, but in the spring of 2006, Jason unexpectedly bumped into her during a business trip. He mentioned this encounter to his wife, and together they decided to invite Money over for a visit. During her stay, Money confided about her troubled marriage and relationship issues while consistently admiring Jason and remarking to Michelle about how fortunate she was to have him. Pregnant Michelle didn't sense any ulterior motives in Money's behavior and genuinely wished to offer her comfort and support. However, Jason interpreted these interactions as an opportunity. Jason, known for his flirtatious nature, soon escalated his relationship with Money beyond mere friendship. They began communicating almost daily and secretly meeting up. Jason covered up these rendezvous under the guise of business trips, and Michelle, unsuspecting, believed him. By the summer of 2006, Michelle informed Jason of her pregnancy, but his reaction was far from joyful. Confused by his distant behavior, Michelle attributed his aloofness to the previous miscarriage they had endured. Meanwhile, Jason was contemplating how to extricate himself from his marriage with minimal personal loss. In early November, with Michelle 5 months pregnant, Jason left for another alleged business trip. He drove 300 miles from home and checked into a hotel about halfway. The night before his departure, Michelle had confided to a friend during a phone call about a major argument with Jason. That evening, after reaching his hotel, Jason's actions were not of a tired traveler. He meticulously surveyed the hotel's entrances, exits, and security cameras, plotting how he could leave and then return without being noticed. He was crafting what he believed to be an unbreakable alibi for a meticulously planned crime. In the early hours of the morning, Jason made a calculated call to Michelle's sister, Meredith. He concocted a story about wanting to surprise Michelle with a piece of jewelry for their anniversary and claimed he had accidentally sent a page from an online store to their home fax machine. Concerned that Michelle might see it and ruin the surprise, he asked Meredith for help. Despite her reservations about Jason, Meredith agreed to assist. In that eerily quiet house, as Meredith navigated the unsettling stillness, she made a chilling discovery. Michelle lay motionless on the floor by the bed, her life brutally extinguished. The scene was a nightmare, blood splattered on the walls and furniture, and most heartbreakingly, tiny bloodied footprints near Michelle's body. It was clear no one could have saved Michelle. She had been dead for hours. In a state of shock and horror, Meredith called emergency services. It was then she heard a faint rustling from under the bed. Peering beneath, she found little Cassidy, Michelle's daughter, looking up with a bewildered gaze. Cassidy, though unharmed, was deeply traumatized. The child had witnessed the horrific murder of her mother and had stayed beside her body for hours, as evidenced by the floor's marks and the toys she had brought to her mother. Forensic analysis revealed a brutal attack. Michelle had suffered numerous bruises, abrasions, and fractures. Her teeth were knocked out, and her skull was fractured by a heavy, blunt object, which was never found. Beside Michelle's body lay a blood-soaked pillow, suggesting she had been smothered. The absence of any stolen items indicated that the intruder's sole intention was murder. The house showed no signs of forced entry, the locks were intact, and the secret door was known only to family members. In such cases, suspicion often falls on the spouse, but Jason Young had what seemed like a solid alibi. He claimed to have been in his hotel room the entire night until the following morning, with keycard records seemingly supporting his story. However, a thorough investigation soon unearthed several peculiarities and inconsistencies. One odd detail emerged when a hotel employee found that the emergency exit door was not just open, but propped open with a cobblestone, preventing it from closing. When investigators checked the surveillance camera covering that exit, they discovered it had been deliberately disabled on the night of the murder, ceasing to record about half an hour after Young checked into his room. Further oddness emerged when it was revealed that a man resembling Jason was seen refueling at a gas station between the hotel and the crime scene that night. When asked for identification, as per the station's policy, the man opted to pay with cash and hastily left without collecting his change. The attendant later identified Jason Young at the inquest, but Jason continued to deny any involvement, insisting he had been asleep in his hotel room all night. The case took a further intriguing turn with Jason Young's phone records from the day before the tragic event. He had made over 24 calls to Michelle Money, his mistress, and on the morning of the murder, he called her 5 more times, each conversation lasting no more than 15 seconds. This pattern suggested Jason was in a state of panic, and importantly, these calls were made outside the hotel, contradicting his claim of having stayed there all night. Additionally, Young was notably late for a business meeting on the morning after the murder and appeared disoriented. However, none of these pieces of evidence, either individually or collectively, conclusively proved Young's guilt in the violent killing of his pregnant wife. The investigation dragged on for years. For nearly 3 years after the murder, Jason continued his usual life and even won custody of his daughter Cassidy, a decision that deeply hurt Michelle's family. His open relationship with Michelle Money, once a friend of the slain Michelle, only heightened suspicions against him. Jason was finally arrested at the end of 2009. Despite substantial evidence, the jury couldn't reach a unanimous verdict, leading to a mistrial. In 2012, the case was reopened with additional evidence and witness testimonies. Notably, Jason's distinctive white car was seen parked near his house on the night of the murder. A child psychologist's testimony about Cassidy's doll play, where she mimicked her father hitting her mother, further implicated Jason. Money, taking the stand, admitted to the affair, but claimed Jason was unhappy in his marriage. Another former mistress testified about Jason's violent outbursts and fear of his aggression. After an extensive trial, Jason Young was convicted of the brutal assault and murder of his pregnant wife and sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. His subsequent appeals in 2014 and 2018 were both denied by the State Court of Appeals. The tragic outcome of this case left Cassidy virtually orphaned, with her mother murdered and her father imprisoned for the crime. She is now being raised by her aunt and maternal grandparents, a bittersweet resolution to a story that shook many. Thank you for watching this episode. I'm Connor, and I hope you found this story as compelling and heart-wrenching as I did. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more shocking true crime stories. Stay tuned for more content, and thank you again for your support.